So hello, welcome back to the channel. As the title of this video would suggest, somewhat of a monumental moment. I don't really know where to start. This channel being more towards road cars, supercars, etc. We're going to be probably focusing more on the Valkyrie program. I'm here with Fraser Dunn. As far as job titles go, you're up there, mate. Like one of the best job titles in the world, which is Chief Engineer of Valkyrie program.
Correct.
I thought I had a good job. This is ridiculous.
Yours looks more fun, believe me, definitely.
So anyone who may or may not have followed the journey of Valkyrie on this channel, we last spoke to Fraser about 12 months ago now?
Just over 12.
Okay, obviously things in the world have changed somewhat since then, but you guys have still managed to crack on with the development of the car.
Yep, it's been a struggle, obviously, with the whole COVID crisis that we've been living through and what have you, but we've forged through, because obviously we need to get the car done and developed and what have you, but we've managed to make good progress and we've moved forward over the past year. So this car here in front of you is VP5. So we've now got 7 prototypes running. When I saw you last time, that was around VP1, so that was the first prototype we'd made. And then this particular car, VP5, this is one of our active development cars. So this car is one of the cars that's turning on all the active suspension, all the active aero and everything that actually yields the performance for this car.
So this is really the closest thing we've seen so far to what will ultimately be a fully operational Valkyrie. Correct,
yes. This one informs all the kind of calibration activities that goes into all the other cars as well. So.
Okay, cool. So speaking of that, isn't it amazing that the last time we spoke, which in the grand scheme of things wasn't that long ago, never did we think this situation would happen where the technology of this car has been heavily informed by F1 tech.
Correct.
And now here you are as Aston Martin with an Aston Martin F1 team.
Yep.
This wasn't even on the radar.
So obviously when this started, it was stickers on a car, and now obviously we've got our own car. So it is quite a special moment.
Cool. So a big part of the story of Valkyrie is there's been so much learning and tech which has been brought down from F1. Is there anything that you can highlight and share with us where these two cars share some components?
So I mean, ultimately I think the kind of the obvious story and is kind of partly the kind of raison d'etre of this car is the Aero. So as I explained last time, you know, the kind of the massive tunnels, all this stuff is all driven by Formula One aerodynamics, kind of all the CFD activities they do in Formula One has essentially generated the design of this car. This car actually is given a little bit more freedom than this one because this has to run to a load of homologation rules that this one doesn't.
Right.
So arguably this car has a little bit more freedom, but we end up having to kind of bake a load of other things in this car because it also has to be drivable by a normal guy that's not a professional racing driver and be able to be comfortable and what have you. So we've deployed a huge amount of hydraulics on this car to give you the active systems that I was telling you about a minute ago. So that means that the car can run relatively compliantly on a normal road, yet when you're kind of starting to press on and you're starting to lean on the car will essentially support itself, hold itself up against the aero loads, anti-roll, anti-pitch, all the things that the active will give you that means that you've got a completely flat platform to drive around.
Fantastic. So you just touched on that this is VP5, is it?
VP5, yeah.
This is VP5, and you've got 7 of them now.
7 cars at the moment, and then there's another prototype yet to be made.
Can you remotely begin to explain? Because so you've been involved in this project from day one. You touched on that you took a few cars out for testing in a real-world circuit.
Yep.
What are they like, man? I mean, we've been hearing about this thing for so long. There's no one better placed than you.
Well, you know, when we kind of discussed earlier when you first arrived today, you know, one of the things that is quite easy in working on the program is to become kind of normalised by the car. So you know, you see them every day, and it just becomes a thing you see. When we turned up down at Nardo, which is a test facility we use down in southern Italy, we had professional drivers driving the cars dynamically around the handling track, and there were literally most of the other kind of manufacturers' test teams were coming to the pit wall to watch the car come through because they were all just blown away by the car, and that kind of was a a spine-tingling moment of actually realising how special this car's going to be.
So I was at Silverstone summer last year filming something else, and I heard what I thought, and I truly thought this. Someone was perhaps shaking down an old F1 car for some historic event or something like that. I followed that sound, and sure enough, it was one of these testing. I'm not joking. It is really hard to convey that sort of sound on camera, and I know audience has heard all about this car. I mean, this high revving, naturally aspirated V12 F1 tech. Take it from me. When I heard this thing, it actually sounds like an F1 car, 100%. But importantly, from the right era, from the exciting era of F1 cars.
Well, unfortunately, and kind of fortunate yet unfortunate, the technology is driven to being more kind of, smaller engines, turbocharged and what have you, but going for the kind of naturally aspirated engine was one of the kind of the key things at the start of the program to give that kind of audio soundtrack to the car that just makes it so much more special. Cool. So, and when you saw it, it was probably only revving to 9,000 RPM. So it now revs to 11.4. So
in what world?
It sounds even better.
11.4. Yeah. What 11.4 must sound like under load as well. I mean, there's one thing hearing it, benched, but under load must be special.
That is impressive.
Cool. So while we're stood here next to your new F1 car, which obviously is huge news, can we draw any comparisons and parallels with regards to Aero? This is the first time that I've seen one next to an F1 car, let alone Aston Martin's F1 car. When you see it, there is so much obvious connections here, particularly when you look sort of low and through it, you can see all of that exposed Aero.
So straight away, kind of like the floor on these cars obviously pretty well restricted by the homologation rules. So this car's obviously got a much more exotic underfloor than this thing. It sounds mental, but it's true. So this car has much bigger tunnels, but you can see a load of the features that are brought into the car to actually activate the tunnels that both cars actually have. So you've got these vortex generators on the side, so you can see those funny features there. Yeah. And obviously mirrored on this car here. Yeah. Then you've got the kind of the barge boards. Obviously, barge boards have all kind of started to kind of evolve a bit now, and you've got this kind of cluster of complexity here. Which is just
when you say started to evolve, it's somewhat of an understatement. I mean, it looks absurd, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hasten to guess how much that corner costs, but it's a lot. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, this kind of feature here, you can see mirrored there, which is kind of. I've always called them barge boards. I think that's what they call them. And then obviously all the suspension, kind of all the faired wishbones and everything, very, very similar and kind of mirrored across. This has got a kind of a 5-element wing. Obviously that's kind of a dual element, but obviously we've got the active kind of capability that this thing doesn't have. So we kind of have to be able to modulate the amount of aero kind of downforce that the wings are making. Yeah. But I think they're kind of across the board, the Aero story is kind of pretty strong between the two cars.
Incredible. Do you have any Aero figures that you're allowed to share yet in terms of downforce or anything like that, or is that for a later date?
We're still running through and kind of actually kind of running the kind of the real world against the simulations at the moment, but it makes its own weight in downforce.
Okay. Right. Okay. Really? Okay. Yeah. Right. Wow. So just touch on then the active aero elements, which is weirdly more advanced on this than this.
Yes. So obviously, in Formula One, it would be the kind of the thing that they would want to do, but they're just not allowed to do it. So Adrian, who's obviously very heavily involved on this program, developed an active car with Williams back in the day, and that's kind of it was the itch that he had to scratch, and that's then kind of what's ended up on this car as the active system.
That's amazing.
What we actually had to do on this car to kind of make it all make sense, and I think I explained this last time we met, is that the limiting factor, the kind of the fuse to the aero performance is limited by the tyres capability. So there's a max loading on a tyre, at which point you know the manufacturers get a bit upset with you for kind of pushing them harder than that. The active systems on this car actually start bleeding the aerodynamic performance at a speed. So we run maximum aero up to a point, and then we then start bleeding the aero performance. So it doesn't mean you get less downforce, it just means that you stop increasing downforce, because obviously we'd get to a point where we'd start overloading the tyres. Wow. So obviously we've got elements at the front of the car which kind of back off, and that reduces the front wing. The rear wing itself, obviously that moves up and down, and then in the diffuser tunnels we've actually got some kind of valves, for want of a better use of the word, that actually stall the airflow in the tunnel and reduce the kind of, because it's the floor that is actually the most powerful element of the car. So as all those things back off, they don't just all do it in kind of like unison and do it all together. It actually has a full loop of feedback of the loads that the car's making, and it actually tailors that to make sure that the center of pressure, which gives you your aerodynamic balance, is in the correct place at any point in time, depending on what you're doing with your driving. So that's why this is such a complex car to kind of calibrate and to tune and to make work.
So at the beginning of this, when I said you got the best job in the world, it sounds like you have got a head full of complications.
Yes, it does keep me awake at night sometimes, just kind of going, oh my God, how is this all going to come together? But it is there, and it is going to be a wonderful thing.
So in terms of like shared chassis component, shared design, if we were to sort of pair this back, how similar is it in principle to an F1 car?
If you were to kind of literally take the bodywork off both cars, you would be looking at something that looks like they were very much related. So,
are you serious?
Yeah, 100%. So obviously, if you took all the front clam off and you just left it with a nose cone, it's very kind of pointy, kind of shaped off the front of the tub. If you took the roof off, it's essentially pretty much exactly the same shape and structure of the main tub of a Formula One car, albeit this is wider because it accommodates two people, and you've got the kind of the roof on it. And then you can almost see straight away if you look where the kind of the air intake is on the side of the car. Absolutely. Kind of mirrors where the air intake is on this car. And then obviously the kind of one of the main features of this car is that the whole of the rear powertrain and suspension is actually hung off the rear of the tub, exactly the same as this car. So it's a stress member powertrain.
So that's effectively the engine forms part of the structure of the actual
literally,
chassis itself.
If you were to kind of cut a section through that door shut, that's literally everything behind there is powertrain and suspension exactly in the same manner that you have on a Formula One car.
And would I be right in saying drawing parallels to air intake as well? I mean,
exactly.
They seem very similarly placed.
So all the kind of air path for the engine is all pretty much identical to what the guys knew from Formula One that they then applied to this car.
So every now and again, someone will launch a car and we'll hear this overly used term. It's like an F1 car for the road.
Yep.
It's not far off now, is it?
I mean, you couldn't get any closer. It was kind of like let's make a two-seater Formula One car and then make it really complicated. That's what we have here. It is incredibly close to draw parallels, but then it has all the complexity of A, making it a road car, B, making it usable for a normal person that isn't a professional driver, and then get it through all the kind of homologation requirements and everything that you need to do to get a car on the road. So.
In terms of a benchmark reference of speed, is there anything that we can compare this to in terms of worlds of, is it similar to an LMP3 or something like that?
So in kind of the kind of track pack mode, this car would be with the road tyres as you could drive it. It would be LMP2, kind of Le Mans, kind of P1 of LMP2.
On a road compound tyre?
Yes.
That's savage, mate. That is ridiculous.
No, it is incredibly impressive.
Fantastic.
So when we were testing down at Nardo, one of the cars was running with, just as a reference, obviously we're developing all the active systems, but one of the cars was running with no active on, and it was lapping the quickest production lap time that's ever happened down at Nardo. So.
Two things. What would you say has been your most proudest moment so far, and what's been the most difficult moment to achieve VP7?
I would say that the kind of the level of complexity in this car is the difficult bit. There's no one thing that you can say, oh, that was the hardest bit or the worst bit. It is just pushing the boundaries of what has been done as a road car. So that's the challenge. But I would say that for me, the kind of the most incredible thing that I've witnessed is watching pro drivers drive it on a handling track down in southern Italy. It was just unbelievable. Awesome. Like, it was faster than anything I've ever seen. Like literally with race cars as well, it looked quicker than I've ever seen a race car come past.
Quite abstract for something that wears number plates on road legal tyres.
Yeah.
So what we've effectively said now is we've got this underpinnings of this car here in a road car. Only it's a high revving, naturally aspirated V12, which ironically would make this car really exciting.
And I think it would probably make more people go and watch the races as well if you had the V12 soundtrack.
Brilliant. All right, well, Fraser, thank you so much, mate. It's actually amazing. I know for you it's been a very long process. For me, I haven't touched base with this program for 12 months, and to see how far you've come in that time is huge. and it's great news for any potential clients or fans watching that we should be seeing this on the road towards the end of the year. So
yes, definitely.
Fabulous. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, buddy.
All right, welcome back with a familiar face to this channel, Marek Reichman, Chief Creative Officer at Aston Martin. You've had some big moments with this brand, but this today, should we just take a minute to absorb what's happening here?
Yeah, it is amazing. You know, we are about to enter back onto the grid, and that's how we started, by the way. You know, we first raced in GP racing in 22, and we're back in 2021. Amazing. With a Formula One car in a beautiful green, and next to it you see the Valkyrie, which is really derived from this kind of technology. But for me, it's a really important day for the British auto industry, because these are two exceptional machines. They are built by guys and girls in factories that are about 40 minutes drive away from each other.
Which is amazing. Huh?
It's all in the UK. It's a phenomenal day. It's just amazing to see the two products together, and I can't wait to see this out on the grid.
That's going to be a huge moment. I mean, I know there's a lot of build up and prep before then. I would imagine you and the team are going to be as nervous as the driver on that first race, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Watching with, I'm a fan, so I'm going to be watching on 10 to hooks, and it's racing, so anything can happen. But ultimately, we've put ourselves in the best position to achieve what we want to achieve, which is ending up on the podium. And just hearing the name Aston Martin back in F1 on the grid in this colour, for me, it's a fabulous moment, as you say. And I think the pride is there for everyone that will see it. It looks spectacular, and the platform of F1 is so important for ourselves and our customers, and for notoriety within the industry, just to say, you know, it's the pinnacle. We are racing at the pinnacle, and we have road cars like Valkyrie that are derived from that precision, that engineering prowess, etc., and British built.
So this is such a big moment that you may not have picked up on this yet, but the eagle eyes of you might notice that the iconic Aston Martin wings have evolved somewhat. Run us through that, because as it happens, Marek and I have recently been working on a bespoke DBX project. I know what a big deal it is to even question the aesthetic of your logo, and here you are now with the next phase, really.
Yeah, absolutely. This product, the F1 car, is all about innovation. It's our experimental lab in a way, and what better way to push forward a new logo, the new wing. We're a 108-year-old company.
Wow.
And that wing has changed so few times over that period. We felt that this was the right moment to show a new wing, to show it at our lab, our laboratory, and the innovative nature of experimentation within F1 is the right time to have a tweak to the wing, make it clearer, more bold. You know, we've got to think about the appearance of the wing in different medium now, and it hasn't changed for many years. And it was time. It's a modification, it's a tweak, it's an evolution, and through time things evolve, and they've evolved at the right time for us on our F1 car.
Fantastic. Now, paint. Funnily enough, we've been speaking a lot about paint, haven't we, over the last few months?
Yes.
Just set some context for us. So first of all, how important green is generally to the brand, and also how much effort you put into making this particular shade of green. Also, what's it called?
This, I mean, it's Aston Martin Racing Green.
Cool.
And it is, that's clear. British cars have typically raced in green. Aston Martins have raced in green for the majority of our racing lives. Most famously in '59, if you like, with the DBR4 at Silverstone in F1, in GP racing. And with the Le Mans winning car, the DBR1. This is an evolution of that particular green, that green that you see on the DBR1. And believe it or not, it's 12 months in its development. I mean, developing paint is a really, really complex procedure. And getting the right green that looks correct on the TV, so it's got the right RGB values and it pops on the screen as well as it does here. Modernizing that color, making it repeatable, because this, as you can see, will go onto road cars as well. that process is a 12-month process of iteration, getting it right, small samples, change the samples, look at the samples with graphics over them, etc. Make sure they work with accent colors. And it really is a spectacular color. When you see this in sunlight, the cars are incredible. They're absolutely incredible.
Fabulous. Okay, let's talk drivers. You've got Sebastian joining you, 4-time world champion, and also one of the most exciting young drivers in Lance Stroll. What's that like to be to be involved in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible lineup, isn't it?
Yeah.
What a team.
Yeah.
Sebastian's obviously, it's there to see, 4 times a world champion, and Lance has shown that he's such an incredible, quick, younger driver.
Yes.
And yeah, it is the dream team. Our aspiration, obviously, the sky's the limit when you look at that lineup. You know, we'll be out there competing against Ferrari, hopefully coming ahead of Ferrari and getting onto the podium. For us, you know, in the first season as Aston Martin F1, it's important to get onto the podium, and for me, that would be a win for us. But, of course, we're in it to win it, and that's what we aim to do.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much to both Marek and Fraser for the insights into this incredibly exciting time for Aston Martin. And the next time you see this car will hopefully be in its final development stage before it ultimately hits the road. As always, thanks so much for watching, and we shall see you next time. Ciao.